Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of the UK Connection, alongside my two longtime good friends, Mr. Steven Reid and Mr. Simon Bray on ukulele. What's going on, everybody? Simon was serenading us with his wonderful mini ukulele skills before we started recording here. So welcome back, everybody. Good to see everybody here on this Saturday afternoon or evening, depending on where you are. Maybe it's morning on Sunday, depending on what time you watch the show. But we are doing another AOR melodic rock theme show. We've got 3 albums to talk about. I will turn it over to my colleagues here to introduce us to the 3 albums and why we're discussing these today.
Okay, well, we have the 3 albums in the kind of standard configuration of the classic. People, sales were ginormous and all that kind of stuff. So the classic is Mr. Mister, Welcome to the Real World from 1985. Okay. Then we have the underground classic, which is Walk in the Fire by Strangeways. And then we have, which somebody will have to do that part for me, we have the Maiden AOR album. Yes, which is, thank you very much, gentlemen, The Deed is Done from 1984 by Molly Hatchet. The Strangeways is from 1989. Don't know if I said that or not. So we're all kind of tight together here. There's only 5 years between all 3. Right. So that's the 3 that we'll be talking about.
We'll be talking about. But before we do that, we have a little bit of business to take care of. Simon, what are you drinking today?
So glad you asked just for once. Imagine my surprise and delight the other day when I went to low rental supermarket B&M Boygins the other day. Really, we were looking for bowls for the dog, bowls that he couldn't destroy inside 8 nanoseconds. And look what I found! Oh my god! Look at that! Yay!
Wow!
I know. Yeah. Let's
pretend. Dog, there he is.
Yeah, let's pretend, shall we, that I haven't taken all the plastic out and put it in the recycling. Let's pretend I haven't done that.
People, we're getting an unboxing video in
we are, aren't we? Look at that. And wow, look at that glass as well.
That's a nice glass.
Really is. And this is the power up version. Imagine my incredible excitement when just over there, there's the Back in Black version as well. Back in Black being pale ale. Yeah.
Black
it's certainly not black, but what I'm going to do is I haven't had this. I'm going to open it with my ukulele. I'm going to pour a little bit. I know.
That's not a euphemism, by the way.
Hey, this is a golden ale. I'm going to take a sip of it, and then I'm going to tell you which AC/DC album it is.
Oh, okay.
It's not too bad. That's not too bad. That's pretty good. I would say that's 3 and a bit. I'd say that's that's Black Ice.
Black Ice?
Yeah, I like that album.
That's solid, right? That's pretty solid.
Yeah, solid, exactly. Yeah. And next time I'll rank Back in Black and hope that it is Back in Black.
Back in Black.
Yeah, look at that. That's super cool glasses now. Just what I need in my house.
It is.
Yeah, yet more beer glasses.
There we go. Well, I have nothing as super or as sexy as that. I have Cold Town beer is what I've got. Okay, which obviously it's a Saturday that we're recording this. It's bloody freezing here. It's meant to be the summer still, so Cold Town felt correct, especially when it's the Baltic IPA that I'm drinking. Okay, called Cold Town because I'm from Carlton, which used to mean Cold Town in Edinburgh. That's where it's from. We are 5.3%. It looks like this in the glass. It's a kind of, as we would say here in Scotland, it's peely wally. Okay, which means it's a little bit pale.
Almost looks like a cider to me.
Yeah, I was really quite surprised when I poured it. It is much lighter than I anticipated. Smells very hoppy. As soon as I opened the tin, I was like, hoppy.
It looks a bit hazy fantasy from where I'm sat.
It's not quite that hazy. I mean, it is, there's condensation on the glass. It is, I suppose, but I can see through it. It really does look like a kind of a weak cider, to be quite honest with you. It's more hoppy than it is anything else, actually. I like that. I'm not convinced that everybody will. So this is definitely fly on the wall. Because I really like fly on the wall, but nobody else really seems to. So yeah, I could drink this a lot. I know a lot of my friends would go, "Oh, wow, wait, it's too hoppy." I like it.
All right, so you guys are talking about how it's cold over by you, and here it's just starting to cool down a little bit. It's gorgeous late summer day here today in the Hudson Valley, and we're coming towards the end of like my summertime beer preferences, right? So all summer and last spring, I've been drinking, pilsners and kolsches and lagers and all that sort of thing. I'm slowly going to start to ease back in the stouts and the porters and all that sort of thing, and the Oktoberfest and the Marzen beers and whatnot. But I do have, because of course I had COVID for a bit and I really haven't been drinking much at all for the last month. I do have lots of leftover beers from my southern summer gathering with, I went down south to hang out. Anyway, my summer gathering with my cousins who all come in from out of state, and they bring beer from wherever they come from. So my cousin Lisa, who lives in Ohio, she brought a 6-pack of Great Lakes Brewing Company Mexican lager. Look at that gorgeous iguana on there holding the big lime. Pretty cool, right? This is made with lime, product of the USA, and this is so find a sunny spot and lounge a while with this golden Mexican style lager brewed with the real lime peel and puree and flaked corn for a crisp and refreshing getaway. 5.4% from the Great Lakes Brewing Company in Cleveland, Ohio. And it kind of looks like this, looks like any normal kind of, looks like any beer you would, like Mexican style beer that you would throw a lime wedge in or something like that. Slight lime smell. It's pretty good. Very drinkable. Subtle lime flavor, not too overpowering, which is good because I don't like a lot of lime in my beer. Good, easy drinking lager. I'm going to give this a flick of the switch, maybe on first glance or first listen or first taste. Seems a little unspectacular, but the more you have, the more you're like, this is pretty good. I think I'll have another. So here you go. Cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers.
All right. With that out of the way, on to the albums.
Okay, so if we want a little bit of detail about a really dowdy album cover. It's just all the wrong color for what the actual music is.
Yeah.
So, look at these guys. This is happening here. This is absolutely happening here. Okay, so this is, yes, Mr. Welcome to the Real World. 1985 through RCA. This was the US band's second album. It was produced by them and Paul de Villiers, who's probably best known. Well, he's probably best known for this, in actual fact, to be quite honest with you. But he also co-produced Big Generator by Yes. He worked with people like Kim Mitchell, King Crimson, so a good resume nonetheless. The band was made up of Richard Page on vocals and bass. He went on to be in a band called Third Matinee, which lasted for, I think, just the one album. Had a solo career, had a session career. That's a theme here, by the way. Pat Mastalotto on drums. He is a hugely respected session drummer from both before and after Mr. He's probably best known for his time with King Crimson, but he's played with Orc, he's played with Stickmen. I could fill the entire show just with his resume more than anything else. Steve Farris on guitars. Funnily enough, another respected station musician. There's a theme here. Most notable, probably, or most talked about, I would suggest, for playing on the song Creatures of the Night by Kiss, because everybody goes, that makes no sense. It's a fantastic guitar solo, so that'll do for me. He also toured with Whitesnake in 1997, which I didn't actually realise until I went and looked into a bit of what he's done. That makes no sense either. But
I did not know that. Wow.
No, I presume it wasn't a whole tour or all the dates or whatever. I did look at a few places to back that up.
I wonder if that was the time where like Vandenberg was coming and going and Warren DeMartini came and went, and like Coverdale was having a hard time keeping a stable lineup when he brought Whitesnake back together as a touring entity. I bet you it was during that time. So this is probably right before Reb Beach and Doug Aldrich.
is it in around there? And I looked to make sure that I could find at least one quote where he talks about it, because I read that and thought, he did? That passed me by completely. So I guess it was a few dates or a leg of a tour or something like that, rather than a couple of years in the band. He's also played with people like Eddie Money, Celine Dion. He's been there and done it, kind of thing. Then you got Steve George on keyboards, who, well, as you would expect, has done a lot of session work outside of Mr. Mister. He was very much in demand as a songwriter. He wrote songs with people like Al Jarreau, the Pointer Sisters, Patti LaBelle, Beat Loaf, and also did lots of work as a backing singer over the years in the studio for Same Again. A list of people as long as you can think. So this album hit the top spot in the US, number 6 here in the UK. It got to number 2 in Canada and Norway. It went top 10 in the Netherlands, Finland, Germany, Switzerland, and Iceland. And all of that resulted in it going triple platinum in Canada, platinum in the States, gold in the UK, and in Sweden. Now, there were 4 singles from this album, 2 of which, Broken Wings, and people are going to love this, a Scotsman saying, Kerry, topped the US charts, okay, as they both also did in Canada, while Kerry also did in Norway. Here in the UK, Broken Wings got to number 4, Kerry got to number 11. Now, there were other 2 singles, Is It Love and Black Stroke White. They pretty much bombed by comparison, although the former got to number 8 in the US and 20 in Canada. Interestingly, the follow-up album, Go On, in 1987, really was a flop. And by album number 4, called Pool, things had come off the rails completely. Steve Farris had already left the band, and RCA refused to release the album. This is 2 albums down the line from a ginormous selling smash hit, although the Pool did finally get released in 2010. So it's a very odd kind of 4-album catalogue for Mr. Mister.
Yeah, I mean, this was a pretty big album here. Although, you know, interestingly enough, considering like how well the singles did, I mean, these guys were all over the radio and MTV. I mean, I think this only went platinum. Like it only sold like 1 million copies, if I remember correctly. Which
How times have changed when we can say only 1 million.
Right, but I'm just saying, number 1 album, 2 massive singles, another minor hit, all over the radio, all over MTV. You would think, you know, that this is like a 5 million, you know, and again, I don't know when the last time it was certified, so who knows, but when I was, you know, listening to this and doing some of the research, I was like, shit, I would have thought that this would have been a much bigger smash than that. You're right, that's still a great selling album and still a big album, but I would have thought it would have been more, because man, Mr. Mister were all the rage here for it seemed like that whole year, in the summer especially, and so yeah, I was kind of surprised. I expected a little bit more. So anyway, all right, what do you think, Simon?
I think it's fair to say that the singles off this album, just remind me what they were called, Stephen.
Well, there's Broken Wings, Is It Love, Black and White, or Black White. I think that's them all, is it not? There's also Kerry.
There we go. Broken Wings and Kiwi. They were absolutely ubiquitous here for a period, weren't they? And that's that kind of ubiquity, the kind of thing that puts me off stuff. And I never at any point until you made me thought, I really need to listen to Welcome to the Real World by Mr. Mister, which incidentally is a shit name for a band. Just want to say so. Yeah, made some notes for once. Yeah, but not necessarily in the right order. I think I liked it more than I thought I would do overall, because I don't like the opening song one little bit. I think that Run to Her is BLAND, bland as is Into My Own Hand. There's some good stuff here. So there's some really good stuff. I mean, the singles are on reflection, and when you listen to them properly, and thank you. I didn't realize Lamar was in the band at any point. The singles are just absolutely perfectly crafted pop songs, are they not? They really are. And actually, I think the singles, the production hasn't dated as much as it has on some of the songs. For instance, yeah, very 80s production. Yeah. Oh, Don't Slow Down, which I think is excellent. As a bit like a slightly downbeat Toto, but oh, those drums. Oh, oh. Yeah, but you get what you pay for at the time, don't you? You know what I mean? And I actually, whilst you can think, oh, this is an 80s album, you don't think, it's an 80s album, I can't listen to it.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes you do, don't you? Think, oh no, get those synthetic drums away from me. And I never really felt like.
More on that later.
Yeah. I've always felt, from the little bits of Mr. that I have heard, and I'm prepared to stand by this after listening to the record, which I do not dislike. I don't dislike the record at all. I've always felt like they're a slightly less interesting saga.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue too much with that, to be fair.
No, so
I can see the similarities, maybe not enough guitar muscle compared to Saga, but
exactly.
I can see that.
But there's marginally more guitar than you might find in.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's essentially middle of the road pop music, isn't it? Really, I might take issue with whether or not it's an actual melodic rock classic, but that's absolutely where it gets shoehorned in as and discussed as, isn't it? Yeah, the vocals are strong, not very idiosyncratic. There's nothing to me that makes it, oh, that's absolutely outstandingly, but it's just good, and there's nothing wrong with being just good, is there? And being able to tell what the guy's saying, that's always a bonus. But the singles are 100% outstanding, especially going back after not really, not listening to them. They both actually do appear occasionally in the car when Mrs. Simon's driving, and I never turn them off, but I don't listen to them. They kind of wash off. And when you put the headphones on, and you're walking around with the hound, absolutely sensational songs, sensational production, everything about those singles. I know why that's a hit, and I know why they're still getting played. Gosh, 40 years later, isn't it? So yeah. Like I said, I liked it more than I thought I would. And I think as a band, they fit in with things that I also never really engaged with at the time, like Cutting Crew, Wang Chung, The Outfield, Mike and the Mechanics. It was never really that middle of the road kind of AOR poppy kind of stuff. Was never really my thing. So I'm pleased I've heard it. I am.
That's not the most ringing endorsement ever. I'm pleased I've heard it, but it's better than I thought we might get, to be fair. So,
well, wait till later.
Yes.
Okay. Now, it's
It will
interesting.
seem like a classic, trust me.
We might be having some tension later.
See, I got a different vibe, Simon, because you're saying you didn't know this album and you've listened to it, and the singles don't kind of, I mean, they don't make me go 1980s production and, oh, it's so kind of tinny and harsh and all that kind of stuff. But I think this album screams the 80s. I think the whole thing screams the 80s. It just,
I said that it does, but it does not in that kind of. I'm trying to think of something that screams 80s, and you go, no, get it off. No, that's so.
I do know what you mean,
yeah.
but I mean everything about this to me.
Oh yeah,
it was really like stepping back in time in many ways. I mean, even the promo videos, they're all kind of little moody, kind of little movies in their own right. The band are dressed for kind of a hard day somewhere between The Office and Miami Vice. So, they're all very sensibly dressed, but they've got massive shoulders and nobody's kind of got anything closed here. It's all very odd. And even the kind of live action stage promos. I mean, Pat Mastalotto he's surrounded by Simmons drum pads. I mean, you were saying you get what you pay for with your drum sound. They paid for this drum sound. They would not have been cheap back then. I can assure you that. But there's also an acoustic kit in there, and that's what makes this a little bit more interesting, as he is doing a little bit of everything depending on where you are in the album. And he's also doing it through marvelous flicky fringe thing that does this as he's going round the kit. Do you know what I mean? It's just, you think, oh, it's so 80s, but they're so earnest. Nothing here's being played for laughs. I mean, these guys mean every beat, they mean every note, they mean every word, they mean every little that they give to the camera during the videos or the crowd or whatever. Everything is just so straight-laced. And yes, this is maybe as close to pop that we've come at any point on this show. Cutting Crew was maybe as near as we've got. I think this goes further down that line. We are a whisker away from kind of Level 42 meets Aha via UB40 with a slice of Nick Kershaw. And yet, you can hear quite a lot of other things like Toto and Asia and kind of Mike and the Mechanics. I think it's a good touching point as well, I have to say. I never thought of Saga, but there's a certain era of Saga that this definitely fits in with, and probably not everybody's favourite era of Saga, to be fair. But the guitars have just enough bite and the drums have just enough power to allow me to say, yeah, this is a rock album, but it's doing it on different terms. So, you know, I also think that quite a lot of it veers towards 80s Genesis. Richard Page has a kind of a Phil Collins thing going on sometimes, more in the mannerisms than his actual voice. And there's an awful lot of kind of the keyboard patches that I think, oh, there's Tony Banks, he's just walked past, there's he's just holding his keyboards as he goes, kind of thing. Do you know, but it's not the whole thing. And yet Black Stroke White has got a searing guitar solo, and it is allowed to come front and centre, but then it's very nicely put to the back again. You know, we've had him out for a minute, let's put him away again. Do you know, you hear songs like Don't Slow Down, and that kind of reinforces that notion, but it also kind of tells you why they very quickly became that band that could have a song on any movie soundtrack. They became a kind of movie soundtrack band for a period of time. They've got that 80s sound about them where everything feels like it's about to be the Breakfast Club. Do you know, it just, and that's what I mean by it. It seems to be such a time and a place. I mean, I can't pretend that I love the Super Softy run to her. I mean, they do it well. But the run through the kind of funky high-tech AOR of Into My Own Hands, into the, I would actually say, latter day kind of Toto-ish Is It Love, which I think is the best song on the whole album. But then the mega hit singles, Kerry, which I unashamedly love, and Broken Wings, which is basically just hooks hung on a melody line. There's really not much goes on in that, but it's just such a great song. It's such good songwriting. And it is so easy to see why it was a ginormous hit. But then the closing pair kind of comes a bit of a come down from there. It can't live with that kind of standard that it does build towards. The album builds there, and then it quickly comes back down again. Yeah, it hasn't aged as well as it could. I quite like an album that sounds like it was when it was released. Is what it sounds like. We all say, oh, albums from the 70s are timeless, but that's because we've decided that sounds timeless, not because they don't sound like they come from the 70s. Do you know, this sounds like it comes from 1985. It's a snapshot in time. This to me is not an album that I'm going to pull out every week and go, Mr. Mister, that's the band for me. But when I put it on, I just kind of go, do you know what? This is really good. If a little different from what I would often listen to.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely sounds like a product of its time, but I think to kind of back up what Simon was saying, I don't get from this album a lot of those really annoying 80s production tropes that, you know, we hear on a lot of albums from this time period, you know, mid 80s, right? There's plenty of synths on here, but it's not too much. There's some electronic drums, but it's not overbearing. There's just enough guitars on here. You know, Simon's absolutely correct. You listen to this stuff like on headphones, it's a really well-produced album for what it is. There's plenty of good stuff on here. I never owned this album. Obviously, in 1985, I wasn't buying or listening to anything like Mr. Mister. You know, trust me, when I could stop playing my, you know, Master of Puppets albums and all that kind of stuff. But
Supply.
I will never live that down now. Just you wait. One day I'll pull out a Shawadawadi album and just blow your mind, you know? So,
We can rank those albums whenever you want.
There you go. With my wife, you ever hear of Shawadawadi? She goes, "What is that? Some kind of weird animal from Australia?" I'm like, "No, it's a drum." Anyway, yeah, you couldn't escape these songs here back in the day, and I will say I always had a soft spot for Broken Wings. I think Broken Wings is a pretty terrific song. For me, it's easily my favorite here, even though I heard it a million times back in the day. But it's just, I love the atmosphere of it. The chorus is great. I like just the right amount of synths. The guitars are kind of like simmering underneath the vocal line all the time. It's really, really well done. Is it Love is Fun? Kiri, I've again one of those. I was never a big fan, and I've heard it way too much. But there's some crap on here. I mean, Don't Slow Down is not good at all. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's pretty good. Run to Her is not good at all. That's probably my least favorite on here. And you're absolutely right, Steven. The back end of the album, like Tangent Tears, and the title track is okay, but then Farris is doing some kind of like Andy Summers Police kind of guitar textures. I was like, all right, what's this trying to be? And the beginning of the album, I think, is pretty good. Like Black White, it's kind of AOR. It's also kind of like post new wave a little bit. There's a little of those flavors, especially in the beginning of the album. I think Uniform of Youth is good. The keyboards are kind of proggy almost. There's good muscular guitars. I think Richard Page throughout the whole album sounds really good. Great voice. Mastelano's drumming is good, but I think he's kind of doing what drummers are expected to do, playing this kind of music around this kind of time, right? He's not doing what he did to King Crimson. That's just it's not the formula here. But overall, it was kind of cool to listen to these songs, many of which I haven't heard in a while, and some I never heard before, and I didn't hate it at all. But after listening to it, I know why I would never go out and buy something like this. But I think it was kind of fun to go and revisit some of these songs and hear some of them for the first time. And I think there's a few deep tracks that are actually pretty good on here. Like I said, I like Don't Slow Down, and Black White I think is really good, and Uniform of Youth, good tracks, right? Non-singles. So overall, not bad at all. But yeah, it's just weird how this band was so huge and then just like fall off a cliff and forgotten.
Yeah.
Right. It's just, there's a lot of those bands, especially here, in the States. You get pickle viewers who they jump, this band is hot today. Tomorrow they moved on to 3 other bands, and then 2 years from now they've forgotten about those 3 other bands. And it's the way it goes. It's kind of sad. But yeah, but Steve Farris, good player.
Yeah.
All loved his guitar playing on Creatures of the Night for decades and decades. And it's like, the Mr. guy played that? Really? Is that possible? Yep. Yep. All right.
Yeah. Okay, so the underground classic is, I'll show that up in a second, Strangeways with Walk in the Fire from 1989 through Hangdog Records. Okay, so this was the band's 3rd album. It was produced by the band's guitarist Ian J. Stewart and mixed by Mike Shipley. So the band was formed in Scotland by the Stewart brothers, Ian J. Stewart on guitars, Dave Stewart on bass. You had Jim Drummond on drums, not easy to say, Alan Thompson on keyboards, and Tony Liddell on vocals. Now, they released the self-titled debut in 1985, but Thompson was gone and Liddell was replaced by Terry Brock. People probably know him from Giant in latter years, Phenomena, Seventh Key, The Sign, Slammer, loads more. This guy can sing, by the way. And he came in for the follow-up, which was Native Sons in 1987. And I'm making a point of showing this one because there will be lots of people in the comments going, but this is the album we should be talking about. Okay, we should just be thankful that the first 3 albums in this catalogue are all worthy of this slot. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. Okay. So for their 3rd album, which was Walk in the Fire, that was released in 1989, still with the Stewart brothers on guitar and bass, Jim Drummond on drums, Terry Brock on vocals, and also David Munch Moore adding some keyboards. Now, as far as I know, none of those albums charted anywhere in the world at any point. However, Kerrang did describe Native Sons as the greatest and most preciously perfect AOR album of all time. Okay, that's quite some claim. So from Walk in the Fire, Every Time You Cry was released as a single, and nobody bought that at all, basically. And then Terry Brock would leave the band. They soldiered on for the bizarrely titled And the Horse, which had Ian Stewart doubling up on vocals. And really that comes up short. The real sweet spot here is the first 3 albums. Since then, they have sporadically, I even chose to say that word, released albums through the years. Brock rejoined them for the most recent 2, which came out in 2010 and 2011. So that is Walk in the Fire by Strangeways.
What'd you think, Simon?
Well, in a massive surprise, this is the album we should be talking. Oh, that's a great album, and rather like Walk in the Fire, terrible cover. Just if I well, I'm expecting things about a Joshua tree or something. I don't really know. At least, I mean, that and the Walk in the Fire is like shit tigers of Pantang photography, isn't it? It really is. But right, so Into the Fire is a great album. It really is, and you can get older albums in the box set. Well, all the first 4 in the box set, can't you? Over here, which you're going to show us. There you go. Yes, indeed. If only I knew where I'd put that. This is a superb AOR album. Much more to my taste than Mr. Mister. Terry Brock is a great singer. He really is. He's on Into the Fire. I think he reigns in the paroxysms a little bit more. I say a bit more. A lot more. But at times, if you're looking for comparisons, which I think is sometimes the best thing you can ever do, when you say, if you like that, you like this. At times I find him to be a bit overlandy, but without the whoa. I've done that for a while. Yep. Some Perrier, of course. Sometimes I find him a bit Jimmy Boyne's a little bit less raspy, but certainly his phrases, without actually sounding like any of them and sounding like himself. Which is key, isn't it? It is actually quite unusual to hear such perfect AOR album from a UK band, especially one that's not called FM. Yes, so yeah, just saying, yeah. Possibly as an album, there's not quite enough light and shade tempo wise. Kind of it's all. Yeah, but at that point you're nitpicking because whilst I wouldn't say what Kerrang said that it's the greatest album in the history of the universe, it is a really, really good album. If you haven't heard it and you like this kind of music, go and find it now. Love Lies Dying is lovely, just such a warm kind song and production. Big. Didn't they get Mike Shirley in to mix it? You can tell that somebody knows what they're doing on that song. Every Time You Cry is a bit like John Waite to me.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and Talk to Me with a bigger, smolchier, more 1980s production. I think could have fitted on Steve Perry's Street Talk album. I really do. Oh, there you go. It's a really, 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 really good album. It's not my favorites, or I think they're best, but it's really good, really, really good, proper AOR melodic rock album that is not crucially smothered in way too many keyboards and enormously big brick wall production. So yeah, double thumbs up from me. That.
I think that's a really interesting point, Simon, that I haven't really picked up on to put in my notes or anything like that. AOR, which I still like a lot of, has definitely become this kind of keyboard-driven thing. But the sound that they're all trying to mimic, and unfortunately most of them are trying to mimic something, isn't actually like that.
No.
It kind of is in your memory. When you think about AOR, you do think about the big keyboards and those smooth sounds. But when you go and listen to the really, really good AOR albums, they don't sound like that. They're actually not constructed in that way. We seem to have lost the point somewhere along the line, says the guy that's not writing songs and making albums, but you get what I mean. I will admit for this album and this band, I'm part of the problem, really, because I was not paying attention when Kerrang was absolutely licking them to death. They absolutely passed me by. I was 16 when this album came out. I should have been all over this. A UK band doing music that I really was so into at this point. and I just didn't. I never knew the name. I never knew the name until decades passed, and that's why I've got the box set. I do have Native Sons sitting behind me. I don't have any of the rest of them on vinyl because I just didn't get them at the time, and they're viewed kind of now as the UK's journey, mainly because of this album. I would suggest more than anything else. And I would argue that this is probably my favourite and their best too. But when choosing which one of the first three to go with, I kind of looked at a variety of sites that rank these albums, and I even Heavy Harmonies is a good touching point because there's lots and lots of comments and lots of votes. It's not just like my review on a website saying that's the best album ever. It's a kind of consensus, and this edges it out of 100 by 2 points or something like that. So it's so much like this. So I went with that one. We could have done either, could have done both, but there you go. Now, Tony Little does a great job on the debut album. He's a really good singer, and it's a really strong album. But Terry Brock just comes in and just lifts it to that next level. The guy is absolutely fantastic, and I do like the fact that he's dropped some of the more obvious kind of Steve Perryisms by this stage. I think that it does his voice more credit, and I would say that on this album he's beginning to sound a bit like Perry, but there's some Paul Rodgers in there, there's some Sammy Hagar in there, early Sammy Hagar, and it's a really kind of, he's a rock singer is what's going on here. So, but he also sounds like himself. He really is quite phenomenal. But this is no one-man band, and that also seems to get kind of lost along the way because Terry Brock is just so good and so respected within the scene. Because the guitar work on this album is really, really good. But Jim Drummond is an excellent drummer. He's the real deal. He is driving these songs. He's making it happen. Do you know? And much though the UK AOR scene was always the kind of the feisty little brother of the US AOR scene. It was never ever going to be quite as cool as the older brother. Do you know? It always kind of had ideas above its station. And then every now and again, there are one or two bands that just knock that idea on its head. Yeah, they don't have great covers, but they also don't quite look as bad as most UK AOR acts did either, because most of them really are awful in that sense. But these guys seem to have a big league sound and a big league attitude, and things like Danger in Your Eyes, that's a prime example. Do you know, it's just so strong, so powerful. Every Time You Cry has a really kind of sumptuous, I'm going to move that, excuse me, that's me, melodic undercurrent. It's the same approach. It's a kind of power ballad that isn't ballady at all. It's really clever. That's how you do those songs and do them well. The guitar tone on Living in the Danger Zone, just to die for. The chorus is killer. It's brooding. It's mean. It's full of threat. The title track has as much going on there as well. The whole album is stellar from start to finish. And yet, I have written exactly the same as Simon mentioned earlier on. If you were looking for the weak point here, it is that from start to finish, the pace just never really varies. There's not that real upbeat, up-tempo rocker that comes and just lifts the album, and maybe could have been a single that would have taken them somewhere. And they don't really ever fully slow it down. But if you're looking for proof that the UK could do AOR and do it really well, either of these albums would do. But this is fabulous.
Yeah, I would agree. I had never heard this band before. In fact, I don't even know if I had ever heard of them. I mean, obviously Terry Brock I'm familiar with, but I've never listened to this band before. So this was the first time for me, and I was pretty impressed. He's, first of all, he's so good. You could almost go to the point of saying that he steals the show, because I mean he's just that good on this album, and I think he just sounds like Terry Brock. I mean, there's a couple tracks here and there, like I think Danger in Your Eyes has a foreignerish feel to it. Not necessarily that he sounded like Lou Gramm. It's more like the arrangements. I personally, I think Every Time You Cry, if that would have come out like 2 or 3 years before then, like in 1986 or 87, you could be talking about a pretty big hit there. Because I think that out of everything on this album has the most hit potential to my ears anyway. Where Are They Now is a great opener. That reminds me of Giant. It's got that feel to it. Modern World is really good. Living in the Danger Zone, terrific. That's probably my favorite song on the album. Really good. There's a couple songs that kind of a little ballady, a little syrupy, but they're still good because he's so good. And like, you know, After the Hurt Is Gone, which, you know, I normally don't like when albums close with a ballad, but it's just so good that I think, you know, you can't really fault it. So I like the guitar tones on here. There's just enough keyboards. The production is big, lush, does just what it needs, kind of slick, but it's still hard hitting at times. I think it's really good, and I'm really happy I heard this because I had, like I said, I'd never heard this band before, and I really want to check out the follow-up album, seeing as you guys are talking so highly about it. But yeah, this is good, good stuff.
This is the follow-up. That's the one before.
Oh, that's the one before it. Okay, there you go.
One before. Yeah. Yeah. The follow-up.
Good stuff.
There you go.
Wow.
Okay, so for the final selection for this show, this is they made an AOR album. This is The Deed Is Done by Molly Hatchet, released through Epic Records in 1984. And this was the band's 6th studio album. It was produced by Terry Manning, who, as a producer or an engineer or some sort of capacity, worked with everyone from Led Zeppelin and Iron Maiden to ZZ Top, Shania Twain, Joe Cocker, Bryan Adams, really top grade stuff. The times, though, they clearly were a changing for Molly Hatchet in the mid-80s. This, I believe, was their first album without 3 guitarists, because Steve Holland had just left the band, and instead it found them introducing full-time keyboards into the sound. So, and you can correct my pronunciation on some of these names, the lineup for this album was Danny Joe Brown on vocals. Now, he had already left the band and rejoined by this stage. Then you had Dave Lubeck.
Lubeck, yeah, I think the H is silent. Lubeck.
Just Lubeck. Dave Lubeck and Dwayne Rowland on guitars. Then you've got the fantastically named Riff West. Unfortunately, not on guitar. He's handling bass, but there's enough riff there. I can live with that. And Bruce Crump is returning on drums after being replaced by B.B. Borden for the previous album, No Guts, No Glory. In there, you also have the newbie John Galvin on keyboards, although he had guested also on No Guts, No Glory on piano, and he also played in the Danny Joe Brown band prior to joining Molly Hatchet. So this was the band's final album for Epic Records, and it was also the final album to gain a placing on the US album charts, or, as far as I can tell, any chart, anywhere. And even in the US, it limped to number 120. Okay, now considering that they were a platinum selling act in the US just 4 years prior to this, that is quite some fall. We are talking about big bands here that had a massive success, and by the stage that it all falls away, this is the second band that had a kind of similar trajectory, just not with the album that we're talking about this time around. That said, there were 2 singles released from that album in the US. Satisfied Man reaching the slightly more respectable number 81 in the charts, although Stone in Your Heart sank without trace. And that is The Deed Is Done by Molly Hatchet.
All right, Simon, deal away.
I can't believe they're not big in Germany. I'm sure they must have had hits in Germany.
I mean, all I can say is I couldn't find chart success for them anywhere. I'm not telling you that it's not there.
I mean, the truth of the matter is, once they sank into obscurity here, is when Germany picked them up, and all of a sudden they stopped playing live here, and I think they even moved over there. They spent all their time in Germany because the Germans just fell in love with this band. You know, they returned back to playing Southern rock after this abomination, which we'll talk more about in a second here. But yeah,
spoiler
alert, right? Yeah.
You mean this solid gold classic? Is that what you actually mean?
Yeah, I mean sarcastic, yes.
I think that's what you actually mean. It's even got a great cover as well. After No Guts, No Glory, where they clearly did have guts.
It's a fantastic album cover. Yeah, it's for sure.
Produced by Terry Manning. I mean, clearly they thought, oh, Eliminator. Oh, we'll have some of that. Oh, didn't quite work, did it? But do you know what? When we did the albums we think are shit, but that everybody else thinks are shit that we love, this was going to be in there until it got popped onto this particular show. My God, I love this record. I really, really do. And yet I'm aware that it's, you know. Yeah, let's just have a look at this. I mean, first of all, why is intro piece track 4? Because it definitely stops before Stone in Your Heart. Definitely does. But you know, Like, satisfied man. Whoa. I mean, just, yay, listen to those drums. So sexy. Backstabber, she does. Stone in your heart. Just boom, 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 boom. And they used to have three guitars, and they used to do songs like Boogie No More. And then suddenly somebody clearly said, "Chaps, we need some hits." And then somebody at Epic thought, no hits on this. Catch you later, fellas. Off you go. Give us a live album, and then off you go. It is not actually a melodic rock album, but it's a clear attempt to make a commercial hit. In the same way that, say, 38 Special tried, and I'm not entirely sure it's as bad as Doc Holliday's attempt. Ooh.
Yeah, that's even worse.
You mean equally good? But it's the production that makes it kind of melodic-y and commercial. I know every word on this. I know every beat. I know every fill. I know every fill. I know everything about it. I love it with all my heart. I'm not going to pretend it's any good. Compared to I tried to get Steven to listen to the first two, didn't I? You didn't like the southernness either, did you? So just no taste, Steven. But it's really it's so spectacularly different from the early stuff, and you can see what they're trying to do, and also with Lightning Strikes Twice on the Bray. Yeah, they tried it again, and it just didn't work with them. But it's just done with such gusto and such. We're going to make a hit record, and they must have been gutted like a fish on a stick. It just didn't sell, mustn't they? They must put little hearts and souls into it. Look, they've got all that stuff. They're ready. They're still ready to go into Stadia, aren't they? Yes, it's as close to pop as they ever got, and as far away from success as they were going to be for, well, ever, really. But I genuinely love the record. I just can't believe that some of these, in particular, the single "Satisfied Man," wasn't a hit. And "Stone in Your Heart." I mean, come on. How many songs bring out the na 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 nas for 7 hours at the end like that? Not many, is there really? What can we do to finish this song off? We'll bring out the nanas. Here they come. Just going for a break, going for a cup of tea. We're back. Oh, we're still na-na-na-ing away. So yeah, I love it. I genuinely love it. So it's going to get at least one vote at the end.
Can I just say that this album will now forever be, to me, Molly Hatchet and the Nanas.
That's all it's good for.
Oh dear. Now, yeah, I cannot pretend to be a fan of Molly Hatchet. I did hear some of their early albums when I was young. I've wanted to like them because they've got a cool logo and they have great album covers in general. Not all of them, but in general, they've got great album covers. What's lacking for me is what's inside. But I did go and listen to the debut album for a little bit of context, and yeah, I don't love it. It's doesn't do it for me. But it's not this, is it? Let's just be clear, it's not this. Because even as not a Molly Hatchet fan, I did not expect this album to open with kind of slapping drum beats that suggest that Joan Jett loves rock and roll. I was like, what? And then there's like those keyboard stabs and the occasional whoa. Do you know? I mean, the song is titled "Satisfied Man," and once you get to the chorus, not only would Paul Stanley be proud of the single entendre of the lyric here, he would definitely have written this vocal melody. But, and this is a big but, okay, he would have sung it well. That's the thing. Is for this kind of stuff, you need a singer And that's not happening here. That voice does not match what's going on here at all. And I've got to be honest and say this is subpar stuff. And that might be one of the better songs on the album. I mean, the big gang, whoa, 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 of Backstabber, that does not bode well. But the verse is just completely underwritten. They just didn't bother. They just, what we need to do is we need to get to the chorus. So let's just not bother putting anything much in between. But there's still the time that the verse should take. Nothing happens. I mean, this album quickly heads south, and I do not mean that kind of southern rock south. I mean, as in, I don't know, rubbish. It's, wow, the drum sound is horrible. And when you wrap it around some cheesy sax and a song title as bad as She Does, She Does. Oh, I mean, there are moments on there where it's kind of, oh. It's like Ian Astbury stumbled into the recording session, absolutely pissed out of his mind, and just made some noises and left. Oh, wow. I mean, there's stuff here like I Ain't Got You that sounds vaguely like awful sitcom music, but I don't mean the theme tune. Do you know when you watch a sitcom and they play those little snippets of music that take you from one scene to the next? Those little, that's what this is. It's that throwaway. Do you know? I mean, straight shooter. It's like they press gang Bruce Springsteen in just for a second, but then he managed to get back across county lines to safety again. Oh, I mean, this is really bad. It's really bad. I'm genuinely shocked that a name band have an album that's as bad as this. And I know that people say, oh, he likes this and he likes, I don't care. This is really not good. I know, Simon, that you said not long ago, moments ago, minutes ago, that they poured their heart and soul into this. Nobody on this believes in it. Nobody, not one person. They are all going, when is the last session that I can have to record my bit and go home? Please do we do not have to go out on the road to actually promote this thing. It's really bad. I mean,
I have 100% confidence that John Galvin is having the time of his life on this.
Oh, he definitely is.
Oh, he is. He's maybe actually locked the studio door before everybody else came in. That's how much fun he's having. That's what I think. I would go as far as to say that, along with 17 by Chicago, this is possibly, well, not possibly, my least favourite album that we've talked about in this section of the show that we do on the Melodic Rock Show. I got to the end of this and it genuinely had to message Simon and say, what Molly Hatchet should I listen to give me some sort of context? I don't love it. And I did turn it off halfway through because I thought, well, I know enough of what they're doing now and it doesn't really work for me, but they're good. They're good at what they do, and it's solid and it sounds real and they mean it. And I went back and listened to this again and it's not just like a lower division version. This is like, it's not even non-leagues. It's like under fives. It's unbelievably bad. Really didn't like this very much at all. Not even a good
So
song.
when are you going to get off the fence and say what you mean?
Yeah, okay. To be clear, no.
Okay.
I'm done.
Oh, okay.
I'm definitely done. I'm all finished.
We should torture Steven one day and do a full-on Southern rock show, right? Have we ever included 38 Special in any of these shows? God, you got to imagine, Simon, that Steven would like a couple 38 Special.
I really do think you'd like mid 38 special.
We have previous gentlemen where you two have both got, you will definitely love, and I tend not to.
Yeah.
I'm willing to give it a go. I'm always willing to give it a go. That is the joy of it. This album was a joy to listen to, not because of how it sounded, but because it was an experience.
Yeah, not a very good one. All right, so I'm a big Molly Hatchet fan. I've been listening to Molly Hatchet since their very first album. I love these guys. This is the album cover is fantastic. But if I can go back in time to 1984 and describe the horror I felt when I bought this record back in the day, this album sucks. It really does. And I haven't heard it. And Simon, I apologize. I know you like it, but I hadn't heard this album in a bunch of years. And in revisiting it for this episode, I think it's even worse than I thought it was back in the day 40 years ago. I mean, first of all, I mean, where do you start here? Obviously, either them or the label, I don't know who, or the producer said, well, you know, ZZ Top made a lot of money with that kind of sound. Let's do it here. I mean, right off the bat, Satisfied Man. It's the whole formula is the exact same thing, except it doesn't quite work, right? This is supposed to be a raunchy, guitar-fueled band with this guy with these great whiskey-soaked vocals, and none of that shit's here. There's hardly any guitar solos. They got one less guitar player. They got horns on here. They got female backing vocals, drum synthesizers. I mean, everything that you don't want, right, on a Molly Hatchet record. But I mean, you know, too many synths, too many backing vocals. I mean, Satisfied Man though is kind of catchy, but it just doesn't sound like Molly Hatchet to me. And all the whoa, 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 all throughout this album is just like, God, please, Backstabber is just absolutely terrible. You know, you listen to Backstabber, and it's got all these like female backing vocals, and I'm waiting for Danny Joe Brown, and then as soon as he like comes in and starts singing, I'm like, it doesn't even sound like him. Like they just tempered him in the studio, and I'm like, he's like the heart and soul of this band, and it's just like, what happened here? I mean, Stone in Your Heart, ugh, just horrible. He's crooning on there. There's all these synthesizers. Don't like it. Man on the Run is terrible. Sounds like Molly Hatchet trying to do Huey Lewis in the News. I don't have an issue with Huey Lewis, but I don't want Molly Hatchet to sound like that. Harper, and you know, and let's talk about John Galvin, who's a fine keyboard player, but he comes in here and what does he do? He's basically doing like Billy Powell from Lynyrd Skynyrd piano licks through the whole thing, and I'm like, ugh, you know, let Skinner do that. That's their thing, you know. Song for the Children, the last song, Let's Go Out on a Softie, you know, it's like this little acoustic guitar thing. Whatever, but at least it's an instrumental, and I don't know. I hate the production. I don't like the songs. It doesn't rock at all. There's really nothing on here. You know, their cover of I Ain't Got You is terrible, in my opinion. Straight Shooter, that's not terrible. But Good Smokin' Whiskey is just dumb. I just find this whole album dumb. I mean, the one that came before it is pretty good. The one that came after it is really good. But this was just like a blip. And, you know, it's funny, because, and we talked about it before, it's like the record label obviously wanted them to have a hit. So what they pumped this album out thinking this was going to do it for us. And then it doesn't. And then the record label's like, goodbye. See ya. And by this time, Southern Rock is dead anyway. But like Simon mentioned, they weren't the only Southern Rock band that went and did this sort of thing. This was a bad time period for most of these bands who were still active during the mid 80s and just, or early mid 80s, and just didn't know what else to do, because obviously doing Freebirds type stuff in 1983, 84, and 85 doesn't work anymore. And so they churned this out, and you know, and afterwards they just kind of toiled ever since in obscurity, but putting out great Southern Rock, Molly Hatchet sounding albums, right? But this obviously killed their career, which is a shame. But yeah, this album is no good. And now that I've heard it for the first time in God knows how many years, I can go back and start up again, not hearing it again for many, many years to come. So love the band. Love the band. Don't like this album one bit.
I have a question for both of you gentlemen, which crossed my mind as we were doing this, because for me, yeah, you can see the correlation with ZZ Top, not just producers and all that kind of thing, but the obvious idea, the message, the end goal is what they're hoping for. The major difference for me, and I know that there's one of the three of us that would appear to really like this album, is that Eliminator's filled with great songs that are well written and really well arranged. And this is lacking here.
I don't think these songs are good.
Isn't just,
yeah.
Had this been Molly Hatcheted, okay, or to use Simon language, okay, not on the chart style, is there a good can't hear it?
For me, you'd have to change a lot. I mean, it's just, I honestly, other than maybe 2 or 3 songs, I don't find most of these songs memorable at all. It's just missing all these qualities that I want from this band. You know, I don't know. That's just me. Because I go listen to the first album and Beating the Odds and Flirting with Disaster and even, you know, Take No Prisoners. And that's not perfect either, but that's pretty good. And all the ones that have come after it, those are kick-ass Molly Hatchet records. This, to me, just, it strips away everything that I love from this band. I like the Danny Joe Brown snarling, raunchy vocals. I like the 2 or 3 guitars, loads of guitar solos, just kick-ass, raunchy Southern rock songs. I don't get any of that on here. Nothing. I don't want to hear synthesizers. I don't want to hear 3 female backing vocals. I don't want to hear Lynyrd Skynyrd style pianos. I don't want to hear horns. I don't want to hear any of that junk on a Molly Hatchet album. I mean, hey, give him credit for doing something different, but it didn't work, right? The general public just, cast this away. Simon fought the good fight, right? But most of the rest of us were kind of like, nope.
I think what you could do is you could take out the 2 instrumentals. Definitely take out I Ain't Got You. Strip out much of the keyboards and make it more supportive rather than at the front. Add in 7-hour guitar solos into each song, and it would definitely be better. Not be as lush. But I think what is instructive is that straight after this came a double live album, Double Trouble Live, and the way it's sequenced, you've got the classics on side 1, Whiskey Man, Bounty Hunter, Gator Country, Flirting with Disaster, and then Stone in Your Heart, Satisfied Man. You think, oh, is it the same band? Oh, and then they do a song called Walk on the Side of the Angels, which is like about as southern rocky as I am, just not southern rocky. So, and Walk With You Today as well. You're thinking, what's going on with the band? There's a serious lack of direction, and they imploded fairly shortly thereafter. And you think you've got a double live album. What you got of all your own material? What you're going to do? Oh, you're going to put a 12-minute cover of Freebird on as well. Well, fucking hell, lads, hold on. You're definitely something going wrong somewhere.
If I remember correctly, it wasn't just Freebird. They also did Dreams by the Allman Brothers on that one.
They did.
So it's like, what do you have 2 covers that take up 20 minutes worth of time on a live album?
Yeah.
Yeah, the reason I asked the question was we've done Eliminator on a ranking of songs on a classic album show, and there's enough ZZ Top on that album that maybe fans at the time kind of went, "Whoa, what's this?" Right? But with hindsight, they've got a bit of affection for it. Do you know? They kind of look at it and go, well, "Yeah, there was an evolution. There's enough ZZ Top on that album that it's still ZZ Top. The attitude is kind of there. It's the same guys, even if half of them are in a cupboard for half the album. But the context I was looking for when I went and listened to a little bit of Molly Hatchet as opposed to this was, can I connect what that sounds like to what this sounds like? And I actually can't. This vocals sound different. The guitar tones sound different. The songwriting sounds different. And I don't know if the songwriting teams changed from the first 3, 4, 5 albums through to this, or if this is kind of indicative of how they went.
There's more outside writers on this.
Yes, that struck me when I was going through it, is that this feels to me like an album. It's interesting sometimes when we do this slot, because there are a variety of different kind of boxes they can be put in. There's the one where the band tried to do something different and it worked and nobody wanted to hear it because it doesn't sound like what the band sounded like. But this is one of those ones where I wonder if they're losing control of what's happening here.
Oh yeah.
Not because ZZ Top Eliminator was driven by, well, not the whole band necessarily, but a key band member who said, let's go and do something different. And I'm totally on board with this. Whether everybody else is or not, different question. But for this album, it feels like the whole band are kind of going, well, I'm just going to hold on for the ride here and see what happens.
Well, they had 3 platinum albums, didn't they? And then from Take No Prisoners and No Guts, No Glory, things started going down that way. And you can imagine the Suits going, "Hey lads, come on, got to pump out some hits, fellas." And it's a much more commercial sound. That's why we selected it for this show, isn't it? Yeah. But clearly, it was about as commercial as Cannibal Corpse, wasn't it? So.
I mean, half the album. So to Simon's point, half the album or more is either co-written or written by other songwriters or their covers, right? So right there, that's kind of like a red flag. But in 1984, you had Heart using outside songwriters. You had Kiss was doing it. A lot of big bands were doing that at the time because that's what the record labels are like. Oh, we got to inject some freshness into the formula. Maybe some outside writers will help. It didn't actually do it here, unfortunately, but yeah, nope.
So the question is, as we always do, Simon's favourite part of the show. If you could only keep one of these albums, Simon, what are you keeping?
Well, the best one's Strangeways, isn't it, by a very, very long way. But if I could only keep one, I'd definitely keep this one, and probably Native Sons as well. Because
I mean, it's not one of the three, so I'll let you keep it. That's okay.
at some point you've got to cheat, haven't you?
Here we go. Pete?
I'm going to keep the Strangeways and pass this off to someone else.
Yeah, and I'm the same.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed with the Strangeways. I enjoyed that quite a bit.
It's the Strangeways all the way for me, and yes, I will also keep this one, and I'll also keep that one as well. To be fair, the debut as well. That's a really strong run of 3 albums. I like the Mr. but it doesn't have the same impact as the Strangeways. The Molly Hatchet, well, it's been fun, guys. Thanks for that.
Simon, I think Steven will gladly never listen to that album again.
No, that is something I will never listen to in my life again. No. If I ever get captured and somebody wants to torture me, there's an easy starting point.
Just out of curiosity, which other Molly Hatchet albums did you investigate?
I listened to the first half of the debut. I listened to a couple of tracks off the second one. And I listened to a couple of tracks off No Guts, No Glory because I felt it was only fair to listen to that album that led into this one. And there's not, I was looking for that connection of here's the journey. A couple of ZZ Top albums prior to Eliminator, it's beginning to happen. Something's beginning to change. It is a bit smoother. It is a bit slicker. It feels like we're ready for Eliminator. With Molly Hatchet, yeah, okay, it's not all the same all the way through, but there's no indication that we're about to just jump off the boat here.
Yeah, I mean, like No Guts, No Glory's got Fall the Peacemakers and What's It Gonna Take and Under the Gun. I mean, that's nothing like what you get on here.
As I say, I didn't love it, but it's not my genre. So that's not an indicator of whether they're good, bad, or indifferent. But I didn't come away from it thinking, well, this is terrible. What's happening here? I came away from it thinking they're good. It's just not me.
Yeah,
that's a different thing. That the deed is done is just, in my humble opinion, it's really poor. It's really poor. It's from a band of that stature. It's subpar. It really is.
I would say, I mean, I have everything they own, and to me, it's easily the only really weak album in their catalog. I think everything else has plenty to recommend. I mean, maybe even Take No Prisoners is pretty good, which is this one right here. It's got a couple clunkers on, but it's pretty good. But
the deed is done is very similar to this one, and not classicness. Everything on either side is very southern. When they came back as Molly Hatchet, when they weren't really Molly Hatchet, is actually surprisingly good.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, God, Warriors of the Rainbow Bridge, Kingdom of 12, Silent Reign of Heroes, Devil's Canyon. Those are all really good albums. They're just, are they Molly Hatchet albums? Because there's like, barely anybody from the original band in it. Well, whatever. But they're really good Southern rock albums. So, but yeah, you're right. Molly Hatchet Platinum, Flirting with Disaster Double Platinum, and Beating the Odds Platinum. 3 in a row. That was it. Oh well. Coming near you to a barbecue this summer, right? Molly Hatchet and whatever remains of Blackfoot and all these other Southern rock bands that are playing to 50 people here in the States now. Anyway. All right, Steven, you want to give everybody a taste of what to expect in 2 weeks?
Okay, in 2 weeks' time, we're doing something completely different yet again. We are going to choose our 5 favourite soundtrack albums. So whether that is a score, whether it's film music, whether it's TV music, whether it's a band that's done a soundtrack, or whether it's one of those compilation albums really that a film studio put together from all these acts and put it out with a film's name on the front cover. They're all fair game, so there's lots and lots to choose from, lots of variety in there. So yes, we are doing our 5 favourite soundtrack albums in 2 weeks' time.
Coming up soon. So down in the comments below, let us know what you think of these 3 albums and which one you would take if you could only take one with you. And we'll see you next time here in 2 weeks here on the UK Connection. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube all together all the damn time. Please subscribe if you haven't already and click on that notification bell so you get alert of all of our content as it posts. And please do hit the like button before you leave. For Simon, Bray, and Steven Reid, I am Pete Pardo. Have a drink on us. We'll see you soon. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, everybody. Stay tuned for ranking the albums of Gamma Ray, Rich Catino, and myself coming up tomorrow. Till then, have a good one, everybody.